boys and girls. Welcome to Module 3, Lesson 16. In this lesson, at the end, you should be able to say, I can reason and explain arithmetic patterns using units of 0 and 1 as they relate to multiplication and division. Here are some materials that you'll need in the lesson today. You'll need your personal whiteboard, a marker, and you'll probably need something to erase with. Go ahead and pause the video and retrieve those materials. All right, let's multiply and divide using units of 1. Go ahead and write the picture representations equation and read that to your learning guide once you have it written down. How many groups do we have? That's right, we have 3 groups. Multiplied by how many in each group? Great, we have 5. And all together we have, very good, 3 times 5 equals 15. Well, on our quest today to find patterns in our multiplication and division units of 1, we're going to need to erase one of our groups and write a new equation represented by our picture. How many groups do we have? That's right, we've got 2. How many within each group? You got it. And all together we have? Great. Read your equation to your learning guide. All right, now we're going to erase another group and write our final equation in our pattern. How many groups do we have? How many within the group? Great. One times 5 equals 5. This is the equation we're going to concentrate on for a few minutes. We're going to go ahead and let n, the letter n, represent the number of dots within each group. So how many groups do we have? That's right, we have 1. How many within each group? Well, we're going to substitute the number with the letter n. And that should equal n altogether. N equals the number. It's n because the number of dots in each group is the same as the total number of dots. They're the same. So when we look at this equation, what is 1 times a number always going to be equal to? That's right, that's n. Let's write that rule. So our rule is 1 times a number equals that number. Take a look at our related division fact here. Go ahead and talk with your learning guide about whether our division equation is true. N divided by 1 equals n. Relate that to the picture that we've drawn. If you and your learning guide decided that n was the total number of dots divided by one group, and it equaled the total number of dots, You and your learning guide were right. Let's look at the rule that we've come up with now. Great, any number divided by 1 is that number. Let's do some more practice. So as we take a look here, we want to go ahead and represent our picture with the number equation again. We have how many groups? That's right, 4 groups. How many within each group? Very good. And the total number? Excellent. Just like before, we're going to erase a group and write the new equation. So take away our 4th group. How many groups do we have? Great. We have 3. How many within each group? And our total is? Great. Read your equation to your learning guide. Let's take away another group. And we're going to write our new equation. How many groups? How many within? Starting to see a pattern here. Again, read your equation to your learning guide. And then we're going to take away another group and write the equation again. One times 3 equals 3. All right, let's go ahead and change our multiplication equation and see if it holds true when we use an n in its place. So we have one group times a number that's in the group, which equals that number. Talk to your learning guide about why this equation is true and how it works. Can we relate this to division? We can. We have n counters within the group. We divide it up by 1, and we still have the same number. So just like 1 times 3 equals 3, 1 times n equals n. And just like we would have 3 divided by 1 is 3, we have n divided by 1 is n. It holds true with any number. Now let's multiply and divide using units of 0. What does this equation represent? Right, 4 groups of 0. Let's draw a representation of 4 groups of 0. How many dots did you draw in each group? Right, 0, because B in our equation equals 0. Excellent. There are a total of 0 dots. So 4 times 0 equals, right, 0. So the value of B in the equation is going to be 0. Let's look at a couple of more equations. So we have 7 times 0 equals, so we have 7 groups. With 0 in them. So how many do we have all together? We have 0. Or we could say B. Let's look at another one. We have 6 groups times 0 equals B. Well, what does B represent? 6 groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, with 0 inside. So B equals, you got it, 0. What about this one? 0 groups times 0 equals B. 0 groups, I can't draw any. With the 0 in each group, I still can't draw any. So B represents, you got it, 0. Let's take a look at this problem. N times 0 equals 0. The rule that we're seeing here is that any number, remember the N represents any number we plug in there, any number times 0 will equal 0, will always equal 0. Let's look at a related division equation and write it on our boards. So we have 0 divided by any number, which is n, equals 0. What does this equation represent? Turn to your learning guide and discuss. That's right, 0 divided by a number, any number, equals 0. We've just found the second rule. 0 divided by any number equals 0. All right, let's choose a value for n and see if we can get a true equation. So we're going to rewrite an equation that we did a few minutes ago, letting n equal 7. All right, so we've got 0 divided by 7, that's the number we're using. Remember, we can put any number where the n is, equals 0. What does this equation represent? Right, 0 things divided by 7 groups equals 0. Draw a picture of the equation using circles to show the groups and dots to show the number in each group. How many dots did you draw in each group? All right, now we're going to write a new fact. Write the equation to show 7 things divided into 0 groups equals n. So we're going to write that now. What is the related multiplication fact? That's right. So 0 multiplied by n equals 7. That fits with the pattern that we've used before. What does this equation represent? Right, 0 times a number, 0 times a number equals 7. Talk with your learning guide. Is this possible? No, it isn't, because any number times 0 equals 0. Any number, and that was our first rule here. Any number times 0 equals 0. So this can't happen. No. There's no value for n that would make a true multiplication sentence. And the same is true for division. Let's take a look at a special case of dividing by 0. Let's write this. 0 divided by 0 equals n. What is the related multiplication fact? All right, so we have 0 times n equals 0. What does this equation represent? Talk to your learning guide. Yes, 0 times a number equals 0. Talk with your learning guide about what the value of n might be. What is the value of n? The value of n can be any number, because when you multiply any number times 0, it always equals 0. So n could be, let's see, what would be some numbers that n could be? Take a look. Get my pen to write. N could be a 3. N could be a 2. N could be a 5. N could be a 6. N can be any number in the multiplication equation, and the same is true for division equations. Work with your learning guide to try a few different numbers in the multiplication and division equations. So what do you notice when you are plugging in different numbers? 0 times 3. Does it work? Any number times 0 equals 0? Is this true? Yes. 0 times 3 equals 0. How about 0 times 6 equals 0? Yes. There's lots of numbers work. Any number can work. There isn't one single value for n in this case. N could be any number. Talk with your learning guide about what patterns you've discovered for 0. So we've learned quite a few rules today. Let's do a little bit of review. We know that 1 times a number equals that number. So let's write that equation down next to our rule. 1 times n equals n. That's the same as saying 1 times 5 equals 5. Our next rule was any number divided by 1, any number divided by 1 is that number. That's the same as saying 5 divided by 1 equals 5. And then we looked at 0, and we noticed that any number times 0, so any number times 0 would always equal 0. That would be like 5 times 0 equals 0. Any number could be plugged in. And finally, 0 divided by any number equals 0. And that would be like 0 divided by 5 equals 0. Let's see if we can do a true-false activity and pick out the equations that really follow these rules and a few tricky equations that do not follow the rule and are false. Let's look at some true and false possibilities and see if we can figure out which problems are correct. So if we have 0 times c equals 0, that would be similar to, let's say 3 times 0 equals 0. Talk to your learning guide. Could this be true? We have 3 groups with 0 in them. Would that equal 0? The answer is true. This is a true statement or a true equation. The next one is c times 1 equals 8. Let's check. That would be like 8 times 1 equals 8. Is that equation true? Yes. We could have 8 groups with 1 in each, and that could equal 8. True. How about 1 times c equals 8? Well, let's check. 1 times 8 equals 8. Could this be true? One group with 8 in it equal 8? This is true. How about the next one? 0 divided by 8 equals 8. If I have no groups and I have 8, would that equal 8? No, that doesn't make any sense. This statement is false. But how about 8 divided by 8 equaling 1? If I have 8 groups divided by 8 pieces, would I have 1? True. Oh, the next one, 0 divided by C, which we might plug in as 0, equals 0. True again. And finally, C divided by 0, let's plug in 8. 8 divided by 0 equals 8. 8 groups divided by nothing equals 8. That's false. Wow. We have a couple of false and a couple of true. Let's look at this false. So if I have 8 groups, and I have 0 in them, does that equal 8? No, we have nothing in those groups. Remember our rule, anything divided by 0, any number divided by 0 should equal 0. It's time for you to show what you know in the problem set. Make sure you remember our 4 rules about using patterns and units of 0 and 1 in multiplication and division. You've got this.